Hey guys, how's it going? Master Cal here, and today I'm going to be doing the third video of my 2021 NFL offseason preview series. For this video, it's going to be the Houston Texans. The Texans had an extremely disappointing season after they had been a division winner the past two seasons. They slipped to 4-12 due to a variety of reasons. Their defense was atrocious. But specifically one really horrible trade that Trader O'Brien executed, the DeAndre Hopkins trade for David Johnson, did not pan out at all for Houston, as Johnson was not able to bounce back to his 2016 former self, and D-Hop thrived, obviously, in Arizona. And so now the Texans, without a lot of draft picks, they are over the cap right now. They're $13.4 million over the cap. Have a lot of decisions in front of them. They have a new GM, Nick Caserio, and a new head coach, David Coley. And another detail: Deshaun Watson is unhappy, and he wants out of Houston. So buckle up, Houston fans. There is a lot that can go on this offseason. So let's take a look at their starters. So obviously, the aforementioned Watson at quarterback. He just signed an extension back in September of last year before the regular season, and now he wants out. And a lot of reasons as to why he wants out, primarily probably him not being as involved in the head coaching and GM search this offseason as he would have liked, as well as his just general dislike for some people up in the front office. So Watson would obviously be a huge acquisition for anybody who is able to acquire him, be it the Jets, be it the Dolphins, be it the Niners, and there's been conflicting reports as to who might be interested. Carolina as well has been thrown out as a team that might be aggressive in going after him. Watson does have a no-trade clause in his contract, which means he can veto a trade to a team that he doesn't want to go to. Now, as things stand right now, Houston has said publicly and privately that they do not want to trade Watson, and that they want to try to mend the relationship, but as things stand right now, Watson isn't returning any calls from the front office or the coaching staff, so we'll see how this situation continues to evolve in the next coming weeks and even months. The Texans would definitely ask a fortune if they were to make him available, which is why the Jets and the Dolphins, both of them have multiple firsts. Ironically, the Dolphins have Houston's first currently because of a trade that they had executed in the 2019 offseason. Anyways, David Johnson is back at running back. He's in the final year of his contract. He wasn't horrible, but he wasn't great, and he wasn't worth what his contract is paying him. And Houston took on all of his contract, which I think was the most egregious part of that. And, at the very least, if Houston had secured a first-round pick, like if they'd gotten Arizona's 8th overall pick in that trade, then it wouldn't have been as bad, but still. Offensive line play was bad for the second straight year, specifically in the running game, as the offensive line struggles played a huge role in Houston's running game being really bad. Laramie Tunsil was not part of the problem, though. He was the guy I mentioned before as the reason why Houston doesn't have a first-round pick in this upcoming draft, why Miami holds the number 3 overall pick instead of Houston. Tunsil's play was pretty good for Houston. His first year in Houston, since he was traded after training camp, he kind of struggled a bit initially to get a fit in on the system and was a bit penalty prone, but he settled down this year and definitely good. He does have the largest cap hit on the team, though, by virtue of his extension that he signed during the draft, but the Texans are glad to have him protecting whoever their quarterback's blind side is going to be. Senio Kelemete is at left guard. He and Max Sharping kind of rotated in and out at the left guard, with neither being able to firmly establish a spot there. Sharping was their second-round pick back in 2019. Kelemete has been kind of well-traveled. He's been with the Saints. He's been with the Cardinals. At center is Nick Martin, another guy that Bill O'Brien handed an extension out to back in 2019. Martin is good in pass protection, but he struggles in run blocking. At right guard is Zach Fulton, former Chief. He's set to enter his 4th year with the Texans, the final year of a 4-year contract he signed in 2018. Fulton also is a liability in the running game, but he's passable in pass protection. Fulton did agree to a pay cut this past offseason, though, and with the new organization, he might be on his way out of Houston. And then at right tackle is Titus Howard. The Texans took him in the first round of the 2019 draft after the Eagles swooped up one spot ahead of him to select Andre Dillard. Howard underwhelmed a bit in his first year in Houston and missed about half the year due to injury. He was much better, though, last year, and definitely showed legitimate improvement. Their starting wide receivers are going to be Brandon Cooks, Keke Coutee, and Randall Cobb. Cooks was traded from the Rams to the Texans, with the Texans needing a new number one receiver after trading away Nuke. And Cooks had a pretty decent rebound year after he missed a lot of 2019 because of concussions. So, obviously, given Cooks' history of concussions, it is a bit risky, but they have him, I think, for the next 4 seasons, maybe 3, I forget how many. And then Coutee was a 4th rounder in 2018 out of, I think, Texas Tech. He's a guy that has flashed a lot, but hadn't really put it all together, and also had missed time due to injuries. He did come on, though, towards the end of this season, especially after the Texans released Kenny Stills and Coutee, and also after Will Fuller's suspension, Coutee got more playing time, and he definitely showed some legitimate promise there. So Coutee will now have a big chance to bank on himself in a contract year. Whether the Texans want him to be their number 2 option will remain to be seen, though. And then Randall Cobb, obviously longtime Green Bay Packer, had a pretty solid 2019 season with the Cowboys that led him to signing a 3-year deal with Houston. Unfortunately, was mostly a disappointment in Houston, and he also missed time due to injuries. And unfortunately, his contract is such that cutting him won't save a whole lot of cap space for Houston. So another bad contract by Bill O'Brien. At tight end is Darren Fells, a guy who's been all over the league. Fells has been renowned for his blocking, but he actually had a 7-touchdown performance with the Texans in 2019 that led to him re-signing a 2-year deal with Houston. He split tight end 1 reps with Jordan Akins, who is also in a contract year and is the more passing threat than Fells is. Both of them are solid but not great options. At the defensive end position, we have J.J. Watt, the 11th overall pick in 2011 out of Wisconsin, who has been one of Houston's best players in franchise history, 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. His play has started to decline, however, especially as injuries have taken a toll on him. He missed a lot of 2016. He missed a lot of 2017. He missed about half of 2019. So, yeah, he's still a pretty good player and a productive pass rusher, but he isn't the dominant force that he once was. At the defensive tackle position is Brandon Dunn, former Chicago Bear. The Texans re-signed him to a 3-year deal last offseason, as they elected to let DJ Reader walk in free agency. Their other defensive end is Charles Omenihu, who was a draft pick in 2019, who has played well so far. Linebacker, you got Whitney Mercilus off the edge. Mercilus was the Texans' first-round pick in 2012. He's been an okay but not great player for most of his time here. He did have a pretty good 2019 season, especially after Watt was injured and he was their primary pass rusher, which led to O'Brien re-signing him to a 4-year contract. Unfortunately, Mercilus had a poor 2020 season, and his contract is now an albatross. They got 2 highly paid backers up the middle, in Zach Cunningham and Bernardrick McKinney. Both of them former second-round picks. Cunningham was a second-rounder in 2017, and he was signed to an extension. It was within a week or two of when Deshaun Watson signed his extension. And then McKinney was a second rounder back in 2015. He signed his extension during, I think, the 2018, which would have been during the 2018 offseason. And that was before, obviously, Bill O'Brien became the general manager. McKinney, however, missed over half of this season due to injury, and given the fact that both of those players have kind of a similar skill set to where they are very good against the run, but they both struggle in coverage, they're probably going to have to move on from one of them. Off the other edge is going to be Jonathan Greenard, who was a third-round rookie last year out of UF. He had some playing time, but he didn't really do a whole lot with it. So we'll see if he can improve in year 2. The secondary was a major mess for the Houston Texans last year. Bradley Roby was an exception to that, as Roby, the former first-rounder by the Broncos in 2014, who was in his second year with the Texans, has actually been a pretty solid member. Now, he did get hit with a suspension, the same as Will Fuller at the end of the season, so Roby will miss the first game of the 2021 season due to that suspension, and Houston, if they wanted to, could void his guarantees. Next to him is Lonnie Johnson Jr., who is a second-rounder in 2019. Johnson, unfortunately, has underwhelmed thus far as a starter. He was pressed into action because of the injury to Garyon Conley, and safe to say Johnson struggled immensely. And then in the slot is Keon Crossan, who is a mid-season waiver claim from the New England Patriots, who saw a decent amount of playing time. At the safety position is Eric Murray, which is another bad contract by Bill O'Brien. Former Chief, former Cleveland Brown. He signed a 3-year deal this offseason after a decent season in Cleveland. And, didn't do a whole lot for Houston. The other safety is Justin Reed, who is a pretty good player, third-round pick in 2018 out of Stanford, and he's up for an extension this offseason. He's not one of the top safeties in the NFL, but he's very good and he should get himself a pretty decent raise on his next contract. They don't have a long snapper under contract, or at least they didn't when the season ended, because John Weeks is a free agent. They did sign Anthony Kukwa to a futures deal, so he could possibly be their long snapper. Brian Anger is the punter, and Kayemi Fairbairn is their kicker. So taking a look at their free agents, you got backup quarterback A.J. McCarron, outside linebacker Brennan Scarlett, the aforementioned Garyon Conley. They picked him up in a trade with the then Oakland Raiders at the 2019 trade deadline, the former first-round pick who definitely played well down the stretch in 2019, but he missed the chance to capitalize that in 2020 because of the injury, and now he'll have to settle for some kind of a prove-it deal somewhere. Will Fuller. Fuller was on his way to having easily the best and most productive season of his career thus far, being able to stay healthy up until the suspension hit. And so that obviously put a sour toward the end of his season. And whoever signs him, he will be suspended the first game of the 2021 season. Linebacker Dylan Cole, who's a special teamer. Swing tackle Roderick Johnson. Slot corner Vernon Hargraves, former first-rounder of the Buccaneers in 2016, who was claimed by the Texans off of waivers in 2019. Hargraves was atrocious last year. John Weeks, the long snapper. Philip Gaines at corner. Safety Michael Thomas, not to be confused with the New Orleans Saints wide receiver. He's a special teamer who's been around the league. Linebacker Tyrell Adams, who was the starter after McKinney went down, and he could very well be re-signed since he played well. Linebacker Kyle Emanuel, who came out of retirement and spent time on the Raiders and the Texans practice squads. Offensive lineman Brent Kowale, I know him from the New York Jets. Running back Dontrell Hilliard is a restricted free agent. Tight end Pharaoh Brown, restricted free agent. Defensive tackle P.J. Hall, a former second-round pick by the Raiders in 2018, who played well for the Texans last year. He's also a restricted free agent. Defensive lineman Carlos Watkins. Corner Carnell Armstrong is a restricted free agent. Safety Geno Stone is an exclusive rights free agent. Running back Buddy Howell is a restricted free agent. And corner A.J. Moore is a restricted free agent. So those are their free agents, the most notable ones being Conley, Fuller, and probably P.J. Hall would probably be their most notable free agents. So as far as positions of need go, I would say, as things stand right now, I would say it would be running back, interior O-line, defensive line, Definitely corner and safety would be the big needs. Obviously, if they traded away Deshaun Watson, then quarterback becomes a position of need. Um, they could also, and then they could also reinforce their wide receiver room. If they wanted to overhaul the tight end room, they could do that. But without draft picks or cap space, if I were the Texans, I would stick with Fells and Akins. So yeah. So David Johnson and Duke Johnson are definitely going to be cap casualties. David Johnson because of his contract. Duke Johnson because his skill set is just as a passing back. He doesn't really do as well running the football, and the Texans would save cap space by releasing him. That means their running back room becomes very thin, though, so the good news is that you can find running backs in the later parts of the draft or even as undrafted free agents. You don't have to spend high draft picks to get a good running back, so it's all about finding the right guy. Nick Martin could be a cap casualty. Like, again, he's not a bad player. It's just he's bad in the running game, which could be enough for them to release him. Again, they are over the cap. Senio Kelemete could also be a cap casualty, but he's not making a whole lot of money, so they could keep him around to at least compete for a starting job. Zach Fulton definitely will get cut. Brandon Cooks doesn't have any guaranteed money left in his contract, so I think the Texans will restructure his deal. I think Randall Cobb will probably get post-June 1st cut. Even if he is designated as a post-June 1st cut, it's not going to save Houston a lot of money. J.J. Watt, actually, this news just came out just this morning. Watt is going to be released by the Houston Texans, and that release alone will put Houston will put Houston now into cap solvency, but 4.1 million, that's not enough to really work with, so they got more to do. But I'm surprised that Houston didn't at least see what they could get for him in a trade, given their lack of draft picks, no first, no second round pick. But Watt requested his release out of Houston, and they decided to mutually part ways. They could also cut Brandon Dunn as well, especially if they wanted P.J. Hall to be the starter. They can't cut Merciless even as a post-June 1st cut. If they post-June 1st cut him, they would save 0 in cap space. So for better or for worse, unless someone's willing to take on that contract in a trade, he's going to be with them. I think they'll release McKinney for cap savings. As I mentioned before, McKinney and Cunningham both have similar skill sets, and they both struggle in coverage, which is big for linebackers. So I think the Texans will roll with a cheaper Tyrell Adams, assuming that they re-sign him. McKinney might have some trade value because he's a decent enough player, and there might be a linebacker needy team like, say, the Cleveland Browns that could come calling and be willing to give up maybe a day 3 pick for him. But yeah. And then again, definitely cornerback. They could release Roby for about $12 million in cap savings, but if you're doing that, you're cutting your only good corner in the room. So that doesn't sound very productive to me. Eric Murray is probably a post-June 1st cut, but he's also like Randall Cobb, or even post-June 1st cutting will only save like somewhere in the realm of like $3 million. They could also cut punter Brian Anger and roll with a cheaper option. Cutting Anger would save the Texans about $3 million in cap space. So that's going to do it for this video. Again, the Texans are going to be in a very interesting spot as they deal with a disgruntled franchise quarterback and could be looking at somewhat of a rebuild, but unfortunately they don't have a way. But unfortunately, aside from trading Watson, they don't have a way of short-charging their rebuild because of their lack of draft picks and the cap hell that they are currently in. Thanks for watching and listening, and I hope you'll enjoy the next video.